All right, welcome to a post-match reaction show here. This is Sounding Off on Soccer. John Krasinski, Pittsburgh Soccer Now, along with Colton Coreschi. Colton, the Pittsburgh Riverhounds' first match of the season down in Cary, North Carolina. Well, we can talk all about the location and the conditions of the field. Or it looked beautiful down there, but maybe it wasn't so beautiful on the field. But Colton, welcome up to the reaction show. What it's a reaction show. So what was your immediate reaction following Riverhounds 1-1 draw against North Carolina FC?
Yeah, immediate reaction is road points make playoff teams, right? The huge issue with this team last year was that we forced ourselves into positions where we needed to win at home a lot because we didn't get results on the road. We collapsed late. And in this instance, we were the aggressors late. We were going for the win. We probably had the better of that game. It was two defensive errors that led to the goals, but I think, overall, more of the dangerous opportunities came from our run of play than theirs. And I think there's a lot of good to take from that.
Oh yeah, a lot of good to take. I mean, as the match wore, actually even the first half, you could see this was a team that Bob Lilly has constructed with the focus of creating, being much better in possession. There was, even if you look at early last season versus early this season so far, I mean, it's just one game, one sample size, but there's just a lot of good things that you can see. I mean, I have three immediate takeaways. One is, possession. This is what they worked on in the off season and the preseason leading up to this point, and they on a big field against a team that usually plays a 3-4-3 that likes to open things up and stretch you out. The Hounds, they dictated terms mostly, and that's something Bob loves. Bob Lilly loves, the head coach of the Riverhounds. And then the second thing to me was the question mark was you had three, four young players that had to be inserted into the starting lineup. There was a few injuries, but Bob had talked this week that players were going to get on the field based on merit. And not only that, the second half wave, essentially the substitutions included more of the younger players. We'll touch on those real quick in a second. So I thought, again, first game, they all did pretty well. Obviously, one of them, one of the things that shows me a lot about a player is when they make a mistake and they continue to play well, or they kind of pick themselves up. So Beto Yetrach, he slipped, obviously led to the Evan Conway goal that gave North Carolina the lead. So that early on in the 22nd minute, but that's a sign of a player that Bob Lilly believes in, that, he's part of that back line. And I thought overall they were pretty solid. I mean, not to give up a single shot in the second half, not even a shot attempt, again, shows that what this team is capable of. And then the last thing for me, just Augustine Williams, just coming through with a goal. This is a guy that they signed in the offseason, and he came through.
Yeah, to start with the Augie Williams goal, I mean, it was not a super easy finish, right? It was a defensive error, but he was
Right.
well wide of goal, and he had to get it past the keeper who was backtracking and two defenders who had positioned themselves in front of the goal, and he finished it clinically, which was something that was missing a lot last year. So you really, really like to see that. Speaking to the rookies, I mean, we had three starting, right? We had Garcia, we had Borgi, we had Idak. And yeah, I mean, I think overall Garcia I think struggled to find the game a little bit. He didn't have a huge impact. He just couldn't find the space to operate.
Yeah.
Which isn't necessarily a knock on him. It was a crowded midfield in this one, and that's going to happen sometimes. I would take no real evaluation from that. I thought Borgi looked pretty good on the right wing. He was in an attacking mid position, but he got into good positions, was the target of passes out wide pretty often, got a couple crosses off. He seems to have the tactical awareness to get himself where he needs to be, which was promising. And then
Mhm.
Idak, yeah, or Edric, yeah, he had that bad slip. There were a couple of passes that were a bit iffy early in the match that led to some turnovers and not great positions. Um, it was a big position to throw him into, right? In this back two, which was unusual from last year. There was a lot of back three last year. In his rookie debut, I think you saw the impact of that was Bob sort of had Jackson Walty sit a bit further back. He often dropped into the middle of the two and turned it into a back three. And I think Edrak looked a lot more comfortable there, where he wasn't just responsible for half the field. He could have a little more
Right.
time on the ball, and that settled him down. And he looked much more composed from that point forward. So maybe that's just a bit of his game where that back three suits him a little bit better than a back straight up back two. And you're going to see a guy like Walty and a guy like Griffin or a guy like Bradley Sample drop back into that role, in between the two center backs pretty often. Bob does that a lot. Um, but overall, I think they were really impressive. I think Charles All came on in the second half and looked
Mhm.
really controlling and composed, right? He allowed Danny Griffin to push a little further forward, which generated probably our best goal scoring chance in the run of play of the game, which Danny unfortunately put straight at the keeper, but it was a great chance.
Any other spot, right?
Yeah, any other spot. But I think you saw Charles sort of slot into that DM spot and really controlled the pace of play, stepped up, made a few key interceptions, pushed forward when he needed to do it. He looked pretty comfortable. So if that's the quality of play you're going to get from your rookies when you're fully healthy, I mean, I think you feel pretty good about that.
Oh yeah, and Danny Griffin too. The tactical flexibility for to be able to Charles All or any of these guys. O'Toole comes in. Sample he was questionable today, so he wasn't in there. But any of them can slot in. I think there's a lot of flexibility. They could if they feel like they want to put Danny Griffin up higher. I mean. The degree of difficulty of that one-time flick was not, I mean, it wasn't, I mean, at that level, you expect guys to be able to put it away, but also the degree of difficulty to one-time that ball as accurately and quickly as he did, snap, basically that's that snap, you know, below the knee, just get the laces on it. And Danny did that, I mean, just right at goal. But I think if he just goes a little bit to his right, I think maybe more than left. I think that gets in. That's in. But that's a high degree of difficulty,
Very.
one-time chance. But it's still at the same time like they were the better team. They were on the front foot there at the end for much of the match. I think it was like I said earlier. Only 5 shots for North Carolina, and they were all in the first half. So again, the Riverhounds' ability to lock a team down late in the match. That was in the back of Bob's mind. I think they played North Carolina last year in Pittsburgh, and there was a second half match where North Carolina was on the front foot in that second half. And he talked about that with me earlier this week, and he did not want that to happen. But fitness I mean, this is a great way to start the season. Last year, they were dog tired at New Mexico. Obviously, altitude was an issue there. But here, this is a big field. So I know fitness, it seemed like they were pretty sharp as far as fitness goes.
Yeah, they looked, right into it the entire way. I don't think anybody showed a slow step throughout the entire game. And, last year it was really rough at the beginning, right? It felt like the beginning of the year and they sort of grew into it as the year went and there was some hot cold streaks in there. This game felt like a later season game last year, which is a way better place to start and progress from and develop from. And it feels like yeah, I mean, Augie Williams, I don't think stopped jogging or running the entire game. Like there was no period where he was walking. It was constant pressure on the back line, right? And that eventually bared fruit. Even Junior on the left wing, who was largely out of it for a lot of the game, right? We were down the
Hmm.
right wing a lot. Still constantly making runs in behind, pulling the center backs towards that side of the field to free up some space on the right. Everybody sort of did their job. I mean, Danny is really the exemplification of the Danny and
Yeah.
Robbie both, the exemplification of just total motor guys who never stop, right? And they drove the game forward. I thought they were the two best guys on the field, and that's what you want your, you know, presumably captain and co-captain to be, right? The guys driving everything forward, and they were that.
Absolutely. And Danny, with this, it's all those little things. If you go back and you start to look at the box score, you'll see the recoveries, you'll see the defensive actions. So he's just doing it both ways. Robbie too. Sometimes Robbie's in a different space where he's taking up, but he's doing it in that space. But I think, yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that the first when you look around, you see those two. They just seem to be everywhere. They're stepping into passes, things like that. I thought that was a lot of typical, high level, high standard from both of those two players. So the only thing is, a bounce here, a bounce there, either way, one team wins this match. But I think the Hounds, even if they walked away, maybe they lose, and they probably could have had a late flurry. I think they would have stepped it up a little bit more if they were down 1-0 in the last 10, 15 minutes. I think we probably would have seen, although they were on the front foot there at the end. And I think that was even the match commentators mentioned that as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've heard it from Bob over and over, right? That He loves like road wins are gold, but he'll take
Hmm.
any points he can get on the road. It just makes the job so much easier when you get home, and then you really have to win at home, right? That's the expectation. That's always his expectation. Draws aren't good enough. I think if you asked him, he'd probably tell you, as he does, things that he would like to see better, because that's generally what Bob focuses on. But I think even he'd have to admit there are draws that feel like losses and draws that feel like wins, and this is a draw that feels like a win. It feels like a good performance and a good result that you can build off of. And that didn't come until match, 6 or 7 last year, right?
Yeah,
There was a lot of
absolutely.
way more aggressive criticism early last year based on the way that the team played. And even if you didn't get all 3 points here, I think you have a lot less criticism.
And I'd like to finish up each one of these post-match reactions with two things. One, man of the match, and maybe moment of the match. Looking at this tonight, I really, well, I'll leave it to you. I'll let you come up first with those man of the match and moment of the match.
I think man of the match, I'm gonna have to go with Danny Griffin. I think he was just all over the place. He did the defensive work that he needed to do in the first half to settle the team down after the early goal, and then he was essentially playing as a second forward later in the game. He was everywhere doing every job and really pushed the entire team forward. Moment of the match has to go to Augie Williams. The forward group was the biggest concern of the season last year, and it's really, really good to see a proven USL Championship level forward scoring a goal early, and hopefully we see much, much more of it.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm gonna be a little bit devil's advocate to you. I will say Augustine Williams, for me, man of the match.
Mm.
And I think for reasons what you pointed out, he never stopped moving, and obviously that led to the goal. So that part of it is, and that is such an important piece of playing in Bob Lilly's system. If you are forward, you must be on the move, you must be high pressing. You must be, tucking back when you need to get that proper positioning if, every. So I thought, both ways he showed. It's always my biggest question mark is that forward that comes to Pittsburgh new and fresh. Can they adapt to Bob Lilly's system? And Augustine Williams absolutely did that tonight. He showed it both ways. I think he was very accurate with his passing too. He was 11 out of 14, and he just did a lot of good things. I thought he won ground duels. Obviously, in the air, it was a little challenging. North Carolina's back line was pretty good. He drew 3 fouls. Again, key. He can do it. He can hold the ball up. So there's a lot of good things there, and even a little bit off the dribble. He's a little fearless. So you probably in any Bob Lilly system, you'll never see a guy too many players do too much on the ball and try to do too much. So they're not going to play. So if that happens, but unless, I mean, obviously, unless they have the opportunities, and Bob's not going to, hold them back. But yeah, I think that's my man of the match. And then the moment of the match, I'll give it up to we got to mention we've come this far. We haven't mentioned the Eric Dick, who obviously the Hounds Gold Glove, the USL Championships Gold Glove winner last year, and tonight. They're down 1-0. I think it was later in the first half, and it was Conway again. North Carolina had a pretty good possession, and ball came to Conway just inside the box, and he ripped a pretty good shot. And Eric Dick I think he had to go to his right. And we have somebody covering the match down in North Carolina tonight, Sam Spencer. Kudos to Sam. We'll get more from Sam, and we'll get Bob's post-match remarks and maybe even a player. But Sam caught a great photo of Eric Dick making that save, and you'll be able to check that out on Pittsburgh Soccer Now and all of our social media channels. But that's my man of the match. It was Augustine Williams, the moment of the match. Eric Dick making that save because it could have been 2-0, and the Hounds could have been in a hole heading into halftime.
Yeah, it was a huge save, and he made a couple, big saves, and he was really dominant in his box. There was really nothing he could do about that goal, and otherwise it was a typical Eric Dick Golden Glove level performance.
Yes, and that's a great way to wrap it up. And so next week, the Riverhounds go to San Antonio FC, a team that for recent years, statistically anyway, and maybe even tactically, very similar. But they have had a coaching change, and it'll be interesting to see how they will match up against Pittsburgh. Again, I think coming out of these first two road matches with points, 3 points would be massive before 2 at home. So we'll have plenty of coverage this week on Pittsburgh Soccer Now. Should be visiting training camp. I mean training camp to training at some point this week. So look for more from there as well. Any parting thoughts, Colton?
Uh, I would feel great coming into that home game with 2 points on the board. 4 points would make me feel like this is a top half playoff team right off the
Uh,
bat.
I think I agree, and I think that's what this team is definitely going to be shooting for. So, all right, we'll be looking forward to that again. Colton, thanks for jumping on with me real quick here with a post-match reaction show. Riverhounds won, North Carolina FC won. Have a good night and talk soon.
See you, John.
All right, see you.